Okay, let's plunge right into some fascinating source material today. We're tackling something that, well, trips up almost everyone learning something new, especially a language. How on earth do you stay motivated when that initial fire starts to flicker out?
It's so true. That first burst of enthusiasm, it's great, but maintaining momentum, that's the real challenge, isn't it? That's where a lot of learning journeys kind of stall.
Mm-hmm.
And our source material today, it isn't some dry academic paper or a textbook. It's actually a really rich narrative. It's the detailed story of a young woman named Lena and her very real, sometimes pretty messy path to learning English.
And that's our mission for this deep dive then. We're going to walk through Lena's experience chapter by chapter and, pull out the practical insights, the strategies, the aha moments that helped her keep going.
Right.
The goal here is to extract that wisdom from her story so you, our listener, can find applicable lessons for your own learning journey, whatever that might be.
Exactly. And this story, it's really not about effortless fluency overnight. It's much more a testament to perseverance, facing setbacks and discovering those deeper reasons to continue. So by exploring the specifics of her journey, we can find lessons that resonate far more powerfully than just abstract advice. Let's unpack Lena's story and see what she learned about keeping that spark alive.
Okay, so we start in chapter 1, the spark. Lena lives in a quiet Ukrainian town, simple life, helps at the bakery, reads, watches movies.
Right.
And she watches these movies, and this little seed of a dream is planted, just a quiet, one day I will understand this without subtitles.
Yeah, and the source really highlights how it wasn't some grand plan at first. Just this feeling, this quiet spark. And then one night she's watching The Intern and there's that line, "You're never wrong to do the right thing." And it hits her differently. She pauses it, writes it down. The source says it felt like a direct message,
Yeah.
It kind of transformed English from just a subject into a potential bridge to something bigger.
Yeah. And that moment ignites action. She tells her mother she's serious, signs up for a free course, joins Facebook groups, starts studying daily, even keeps a diary in English.
Yeah, for a few weeks, the source says, she felt unstoppable. That initial motivation, it feels incredible, doesn't it?
It really does. But then reality bites.
It does. And the source shows how quickly that happens. Life happens, right?
Yeah.
She oversleeps, misses a lesson, the Wi-Fi cuts out.
Oh, yeah.
The bakery gets swamped, needs extra hours. And that daily study habit starts to, unravel. The source notes that initial spark begins to fade.
And her mother's words start to echo.
Exactly. Her mother had quietly said, "Motivation fades, you'll need something stronger." And now Lena's feeling that.
And it hits that low point many learners recognize. A month later, the laptop login page just stares back at her untouched for 12 days. Oof. Those classic doubts start creeping in. Maybe I'm not good at this. Maybe I was wrong to even try.
But the source gives us this really pivotal memory here. Her grandfather's quote, "You can light a fire again, even with cold hands. All you need is one match." And crucially, this wasn't about suddenly feeling motivated again, was it?
No, it seems more like a conscious choice.
It was a decision. She goes outside, thinks, comes back in, and just writes one sentence. "I am not done yet."
Powerful. Simple, but powerful.
And her next action is key. She watches The Intern again, but not passively this time.
Right. She's engaging differently.
Totally. Pauses every new sentence, writes it down, repeats it out loud. Takes hours. But the source makes it really clear. This time, Lena wasn't chasing motivation. She was building a habit.
And that's maybe the first huge takeaway right there. Motivation gets you started, sure, but habit is what keeps you going when that feeling just isn't there.
Exactly. So the question for you listening is, how are you focusing on building those small, repeatable habits, even when the initial spark feels, a bit dim?
Moving into chapter 2, the struggle becomes real. Lena does manage to establish a rhythm again for a while.
She gets back into it. Daily audio videos with subtitles.
She connects with Sophia, that speaking partner from Brazil. The source says she actually feels proud of herself.
Which is great. But then those external factors hit hard again. Winter arrives, cold, gray, long hours at the bakery because it gets busy.
Right, reality interferes again.
Yeah, her routine and energy just get battered.
Yeah.
Study time shrinks. Sophia stops replying for a bit. The notebook sits untouched.
That tomorrow becomes the enemy.
Precisely. The source says motivation didn't just fade this time, it vanished. Gone.
Ouch. And the source really details her despair here, doesn't it? Sitting with a blank page, feeling like she's forgotten everything, crying.
Yeah, those universal awful questions surface. Why am I even doing this? Is it really for me? Maybe I'm just not good at this.
Or maybe I'm too tired. It's hitting a real wall of exhaustion and deep doubt.
And the turning point is so lovely and unexpected. She's drawn to the library, almost aimlessly it seems, finds this old book, Learning a Language When You Want to Quit. And inside, there's the sentence that changes everything for her. Motivation doesn't keep you going. Meaning does.
Meaning that connects back to her mother's earlier advice, right? About needing something stronger than just motivation.
Exactly. It completely shifts her perspective. Instead of trying to drum up motivation or make a new study plan, she makes a new list.
Not vocabulary, though.
No, not words, but reasons. Her why. The source shares some really powerful personal examples from her list. So I can tell my story, understand others, teach my future kids, speak at an event, grow beyond my limits.
Wow, those are deep, really personal.
They are. The Force emphasizes how honest, personal, and powerful this new sense of purpose was for her. And this deep meaning fuels a whole new approach to action.
Okay, how so?
She implements these tiny systems, things she can do even if she doesn't feel like it, like listening to something in English while brushing her teeth.
Integrating it.
Exactly. Reviewing just 5 words at lunch, repeating a few phrases before bed. The source shows this wasn't about waiting for energy or inspiration, but about anchoring her daily effort in that deeper purpose.
So this leads us to the second major lesson then. When motivation inevitably disappears, your purpose, your why, is what sustains you.
Anchor your efforts in that deep meaning and implement those tiny, non-negotiable routines. It shifts the effort from being a chore to being part of who you are, part of your purpose.
So the question becomes, what is your deep why for learning, and what tiny routine can you commit to today, regardless of how you feel?
Right. Chapter 3, The Power of Small Wins, shows that progress wasn't sudden or dramatic, but Lena started noticing and celebrating the small things.
And the source gives us that wonderful, specific story at the bakery, the cherry pastry incident.
Yes, helping that confused tourist. She only speaks for maybe 2 minutes, her voice is trembling, but the source captures that feeling so well. After he left, Lena felt like she had climbed a mountain.
That's huge.
It is, and she immediately writes it down in her diary.
Yeah.
Today I helped someone in English. Me. I did it. It wasn't a perfect conversation, not even close, but it was this quiet victory that built real, tangible confidence.
And that confidence started to grow as she looked for more of those moments.
Exactly. She actively looked for and acknowledged them, understanding a joke someone made, using a new word correctly, writing a whole paragraph without reaching for the dictionary. The source notes that this is around the time she started not automatically translating in her head anymore when chatting with Sophia.
A significant step. But it wasn't all smooth sailing.
Oh, definitely not.
Yeah.
The source is realistic. She still had bad days, forgot words, made simple mistakes, compared herself to others.
Sure.
But her internal mantra shifted. It became small steps, small wins. That's how mountains are climbed. That consistency and perspective shift.
And she made this tangible with the victory jar. I love this idea.
Me too. Writing down every little success, no matter how tiny. I understood a podcast, didn't give up today, spoke even though I was nervous.
Yeah.
By the end of the month, the source shows, the jar was full. It was actual visual proof that progress was happening, which built confidence even on days she didn't feel confident.
And that confidence led her to take a bigger step.
It did. The source mentions she volunteered to write for an English learning blog, sharing her journey, the mistakes, doubts, the cherry pastry story, the little wins, and it got published.
Fantastic. So the lesson here is really powerful. Actively seek out, celebrate, and maybe even document those small victories.
Yes, they build the confidence you need, which is a far more reliable fuel than that fleeting feeling of motivation. So how are you tracking and celebrating your small wins? Those little moments that prove you are making progress.
Okay, chapter 4 brings us to the wall and the breakthrough. Spring arrived, and after months of steady effort, she hits another wall.
Yes. Exhaustion sets in. Everything feels impossible. She's confusing her own grammar. The source says she just shut her notebook, whispering, I'm tired. Maybe this isn't for me after all.
And this wall felt different, harder somehow.
It did, because as the source notes, this time no one noticed she'd stopped. Her support system wasn't actively checking in. She was alone with those really negative thoughts. You're wasting time. You'll never be fluent. Just give up.
That's a lonely place to be.
Very. But then this quiet thought surfaces, and the source highlights it. This isn't the end. It's just a pause.
A pause, not a stop. That's a crucial reframe.
Hugely. And finding her victory jar again was key. It reminded her she wasn't starting from absolute zero. She had made progress.
And the breakthrough is interesting because it wasn't about forcing herself back into study mode.
No, exactly. It was counterintuitive. The source emphasizes this. She didn't go back to the textbook. She rested. She made tea, sat by the window, listened to an old song just to enjoy it, watched a video without pausing or taking notes.
Just letting yourself be.
Yes. And the realization hit her. Learning isn't always about pushing harder. Sometimes it's about letting go, stepping back, finding the joy in it again. She needed joy, not more grammar drills.
So she adjusted her routine.
The source shows she incorporated things like a low-pressure online book club, gentle journaling, things that felt good rather than demanding.
And then came that moment in the market.
Right? Helping those tourists find the train station.
Hmm.
And her English just came out. Clear, confident, natural.
Wow.
And when they complimented her, your English is really good, the real breakthrough wasn't just hearing it, it was believing it. She wrote in her jar later, today I believed I was good.
That's a deep shift. So the lesson from hitting this wall is really about recognizing pauses as necessary rest, not failure.
Absolutely. And about integrating joy back into the process. True breakthroughs often involve that internal shift in belief. And sometimes stepping back is the way forward, not just relentless pushing.
So what brings you joy in your learning, and how can you integrate more of it, especially when you feel totally overwhelmed?
Good question. Now, Chapter 5 is Speaking Without Fear. Her speaking partner, Sophia, suggests joining an online English-speaking group.
And Lena's reaction is pure fear, right? The source describes it vividly, ready to forget every word I know, maybe.
Totally relatable. But then that inner voice we heard before pipes up again. The source notes it. If it scares you, maybe it's the right thing.
Ah, using fear as a compass, not a barrier. That shows growth.
Definitely. So she joins the group, heart absolutely pounding, camera on, makes that simple, kind of awkward introduction. I'm Lena, and I love baking, and I love learning new words.
But it was hers. She did it.
Exactly. It wasn't polished, but as the source says, it was hers. And speaking about familiar things, like baking, made it a bit easier. Her voice wobbled. The words weren't perfect, but they were real.
And the feeling
The
afterwards.
source captures it. I'm shaking, but I feel proud. That pride came directly from the courage to act despite the fear.
And she kept showing up.
She did. The source describes her consistency, joining the weekly sessions, showing up, listening, eventually sharing more, even telling a joke, sharing her story, and getting applause.
So the fear didn't vanish entirely.
No, but it shrank. And the reason it shrank, the source says, wasn't because she became perfect, but because she stopped hiding. She realized everyone in the group was just trying. Nobody was there to judge.
Her reflection sums it up well.
Yeah, quoted in the source. Fear lives in silence. Confidence grows in sound. Speaking without fear isn't about achieving perfection. It's about choosing courage, taking this step.
So the lesson is clear. Confidence in speaking grows from actually taking that uncomfortable step to speak, accepting the inevitable mistakes, and finding strength in a supportive community.
Exactly. So what small step towards speaking can you take this week, even if it scares you just a little bit?
Moving on to Chapter 6, Finding Your Why. After reaching some of her earlier goals, the source says Lena felt this kind of stillness, asking herself, okay, what now? The initial reasons felt a bit hollow.
Right. The surface level goals weren't enough anymore. This prompted her to look deeper. She finds these old letters from her aunt who lives in Canada.
Ah, the letters again.
Yes. And reading them again, slowly this time, the source says she didn't just understand the words intellectually, she felt the connection, the love, the distance. And one particular line from her aunt just leaps out, and the source quotes it. I miss you. One day, maybe we can talk for hours in one language.
Wow. That's it, isn't it?
That was it. Her true why. It wasn't just about language skills anymore. It was about connection. Family connection, emotional connection, building a bridge to the people she loved, to the world, and even to her future self.
That's a powerful, deeply personal driver. It changes everything.
It really does. Her new list of reasons reflects this. To connect with people I love, to understand the world better, to grow into someone brave, to live fully.
And reading that list became an anchor.
Yes, the source says reading it aloud when she felt tired or discouraged reminded her, this is why I keep going. It wasn't about grammar rules. It was about these deep connections.
And she shared this idea.
She did. The source shows she started a Share Your Why segment in her English group. And hearing everyone else's diverse personal reasons reinforced that deep motivation often grows not from pressure, but from purpose.
That's a critical lesson for the long haul, isn't it? Periodically reconnecting with your deepest, most personal why.
Absolutely. It's the essential fuel when motivation inevitably wanes and those initial goals have been met. It transforms the struggle into something truly meaningful. So, have you defined your deepest why for learning? The purpose that goes beyond just the mechanics.
Chapter 7, The Day She Taught. This starts with an unexpected knock at the bakery door.
Yeah, it's Amir, a young man needing English help for a potential job. Someone at the library sent him saying, ask Lena. She learns English very good. She helps people.
And Lena's reaction is mixed, right? Hesitation.
Totally. The source captures it beautifully.
Yeah.
She's hesitant. I'm not a teacher. I'm still learning. but also feels empathy because she sees her past self in Amir's nervousness.
So she decides to try.
She does.
Yeah.
And it's simple stuff. They sit at the bakery table, and she helps him practice just one phrase. I work hard, I learn fast. Repeating it, watching his mouth, encouraging him. They start meeting daily before her shift.
And the effect on Lena herself is remarkable.
It really is. The source highlights that her own confidence bloomed. She wasn't just speaking English. She was using it actively for connection, for support, for kindness. Teaching him actually made her see how far she'd come from struggling with basic sentences to helping someone else build their very first one. Her understanding of the learner's struggle, the source points out, made her a really effective helper.
And Amir gets the job.
He does. And there's that touching moment,
Yeah.
quoted in the source, where he says, no, we did it.
Ah, lovely. So the insight here is pretty transformational.
Hugely. Learning is powerful, but sharing what you've learned is even more so. By helping Amir, she wasn't just giving back, she was solidifying her own language skills and deepening her sense of purpose.
Her notebook entry says it all.
It does. Today I taught, not because I know everything, but because I remember what it feels like to know nothing. The lesson is clear. Use your developing skills to help others, even informally. Your empathy as a learner is an incredibly potent teaching asset, and it deepens your own understanding.
So how can you use your learning to help or connect with someone else this week, even in a small way?
Good question. Chapter 8 is the letter in English. The source brings us back to Lena looking at her aunt's letters again.
But this time it's different.
Very different.
Yeah.
Reading them aloud now, the source says she doesn't just understand the words, she truly felt them. That connection, that hug across the ocean.
The language barrier dissolves emotionally.
Exactly. English no longer feels foreign. It feels like a bridge to family, to love, and this inspires her to do something significant. Right back. A real letter in English.
And she's open in the letter.
Very open. She acknowledges her past fear of sounding foolish and clearly states the shift. English is now a bridge. And the source gives us that incredibly powerful line from her letter that captures this whole transformation. Because connection is more important than perfection.
Connection over perfection, that's a massive shift in mindset.
Huge. And the source describes her physically taking the letter to the post office, trusting herself, not using a translator, not double-checking obsessively. It's a tangible act of courage built on her whole journey.
The letter itself becomes a symbol.
It does. The source says it symbolizes her entire journey, the struggles, the breakthroughs, all leading to this concrete act of connection.
And the feeling afterwards.
Profound, according to the source. No longer feeling behind or small, but feeling part of something bigger now. And she makes this promise to keep learning, not just for herself, but for everyone she wants to reach, help, and understand.
She sees herself differently.
Yes, not just as a student, but as a communicator, a bridge builder, a storyteller. The lesson is powerful. Prioritize authentic connection over perfect execution. Trust the skills you have. Use your language as a tool to build those bridges. Where can you choose connection over perfection today?
Okay, chapter 9 brings back a familiar, maybe unwelcome challenge. When she lost motivation, but didn't quit.
Yeah, the source is really clear. Even after all this incredible progress, the excitement faded again. The bakery was busy. She was just exhausted. English started feeling like a weight, like an extra job. 3 whole weeks passed with basically no English practice. And the worst part, the source emphasizes, was that she didn't care. That awful feeling of sliding backward returned.
This is like a crucial point for anyone on a long-term learning journey. Plateaus and periods of low energy are just normal.
They absolutely are.
Right.
And the source shows that familiar spiral of negative thoughts coming back. Maybe I've reached my limit. Maybe this is where it ends for real.
But something shifts in the quiet.
Yes, she can't sleep. Her mind drifts back not to the failures, but to the small wins. Remembering the flower box moment, the first proper conversation, the first time she laughed in English.
Accessing those positive memories.
Exactly. And then this quiet thought quoted in the source surfaces. What if this moment is just part of the journey too? Not the end, just the middle. A pause, not a stop.
That reframe again. Pause, not stop. It's so powerful.
It really is. It reframes it completely. It's not failure, it's just a phase. And her action isn't to force herself into long study hours she doesn't have the energy for.
What does she do?
She simply writes the truth in her notebook. I'm tired. I feel like quitting, but I won't. And the source calls this honest acknowledgement, bringing a kind of peace. She remembers that library quote again.
Motivation is not a fire. It's a spark that needs to be reignited again and again.
Exactly. So this leads to a new plan, one based entirely on sustainability, not ambition.
Okay, what does that look like?
The source says, 10 minutes a day, anything English, a video, a song, listening to a conversation snippet, anything, especially on the days she really didn't feel like it. No pressure, just presence.
10 minutes. Sustainable.
Right. And the small victory the source highlights from this period is just replying to a friend's message in English. She writes, I had a hard time. I wanted to stop, but I didn't. I'm still learning, one day at a time.
And that message itself becomes a win.
Precisely. It's a victory fueled by quiet faith, not big fireworks. The lesson here is vital. Losing motivation is normal. Don't beat yourself up. Reframe pauses as part of the journey. Focus on minimal, sustainable effort during those slumps. Trust that just showing up consistently, even in tiny ways, keeps you on the path.
So what is the absolute minimum you can commit to on those days you feel like quitting? Even 5 minutes.
Good point. Okay, chapter 10 brings a really lovely surprise. The surprise invitation.
Yeah, the source describes a regular day at the bakery. Lena's just chatting easily in English with Mrs. Cohen about a birthday cupcake, and her improvement is just naturally noticeable now.
And then the source reveals how all that past, quiet, sometimes difficult effort leads to something totally unexpected. An email arrives.
An invitation.
Yes, inviting her to speak at the International Language Learner Stories event. It's based on an essay she wrote months ago, during one of those low points in an essay she'd almost forgotten submitting. The source says the organizers were deeply moved by her honest story.
Wow. What's her reaction?
A total mix of excitement and sheer terror. Speak, me, in English, at an actual event.
Understandable.
But she remembers her promise to herself. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. And she clicks. Accept.
Brave.
Very. The source details her preparation, writing slowly, practicing constantly, even recording herself. It acknowledges there were still stumbles, forgotten words, plenty of doubts, but she kept going.
Courage isn't the absence of fear.
Exactly. It's action despite the fear. The source describes the event. It's virtual, faces from all over the world on the screen. She takes a deep breath and starts, Hello, my name is Lena. I'm a baker, a dreamer, and someone who once believed English was a mountain too high to climb.
Goosebumps.
Right. She speaks from the heart, tells her real story, the ups and downs, ending with, language isn't just grammar and words. It's a bridge, a mirror, a voice. And I'm proud to say I found mine.
And the impact.
Powerful, as the source describes. Applause, some tears in the chat, messages flooding in. You inspired me. I saw myself in your story. Thank you. And the realization hits Lena. You never know who's watching your quiet effort. That small seed planted months ago during a tough time had blossomed.
That's incredible. The lesson is profound. Your consistent, quiet effort has an unseen impact, both on yourself and potentially significantly on others.
Absolutely. Trust that showing up matters even when you don't see the immediate results or get external validation. Where might your quiet effort be planting seeds for a future you can't yet see?
Chapter 11 is Teaching English Without a Degree. The bakery has become this place of connection, and Lena notices teenagers in town needing English help but lacking resources or confidence.
Mm-hmm. And remembering her own loneliness and struggles when starting out, she decides she wants to help them.
But she's not a qualified teacher.
Exactly. The source explicitly states, no diploma, no certificate, just heart. Her English still wasn't perfect, but it was real and relatable. And that turned out to be her strength.
So how does she start?
Really simply, just conversations over coffee, using her old notebooks, laughing together over mistakes. Word spreads, and soon a small English circle forms around her bakery table. She starts preparing little lessons using online resources and, crucially, her own experience of what worked and what didn't.
And her confidence grows through this.
Massively.
Oh.
As the source described, she realized teaching wasn't primarily about perfect grammar or having credentials. It was about empathy, about sharing a journey, about lighting a spark.
And Amir validates this.
He does. He tells her, "You're a natural teacher," and her reply, quoted in the source, captures it perfectly. Just someone who knows what it's like to be a learner.
Ah, that's the key.
It is. The source shows how her own English learning journey transformed into this new, unexpected purpose, making a difference, building confidence in others, bridging worlds right there in her small town. The bakery became this hub where language, stories, and dreams grew together.
So the lesson is really clear. Sharing your learning journey and helping others, regardless of formal qualifications, is an incredibly powerful way to solidify your own knowledge and find much deeper purpose.
Exactly. Your empathy as a learner is often your greatest teaching asset. How can you share your learning journey with someone else, even informally?
Okay, Chapter 12, Lena's Big Decision. The source presents this completely unexpected offer. An assistant teacher position at a prestigious language school in the big city, offered by a former student she helped.
Wow. An incredible opportunity, right? A dream come true in many ways.
Definitely. But it brings that classic challenge. Comfort versus growth.
Mm-hmm. Leaving the familiar bakery, her town, her little teaching circle for the big unknown city school. It's daunting.
So what guides her decision?
The source explains she reflects deeply on her journey, on what kept her going all this time, that love for learning, the desire to keep growing, the hope to inspire others on a larger scale. She pictures herself helping students in that city classroom.
The fear is still there, though.
Oh, the source notes the fear was very real. But the excitement, the pull towards growth was stronger. Her decision becomes this leap, but it's grounded in her established why and all the courage she's built through facing past challenges.
And she gets support.
Yes. She shared her news with Mrs. Cohen, Amir, her coworkers, and received their blessing and support.
And then she packs.
Yes. The source describes her packing her essentials notebooks, her favorite pen, a photo, and crucially, and a heart full of courage. Leaving the bakery for the last time, whispering to herself, "This is only the beginning."
What a moment. The lesson seems to be that true growth often requires stepping way outside your comfort zone into the unknown.
Absolutely. Your accumulated learning, your resilience, that deep why, they prepare you for these bigger opportunities, even if they feel terrifying at first. Decisions about your path are best guided by those core values and your sense of purpose.
So what unknown step might your learning journey be preparing you for right now? And are you ready to even consider taking it?
Food for thought. Okay, Chapter 13. First day in the city. The source paints a picture of the overwhelming city, the impressive school building. Lena feels that mix of feeling small and intimidated, but also kind of important.
She meets the head teacher.
Yes, Mrs. Thompson, who immediately validates Lena's experience as a learner, framing it as a valuable asset for being a teacher. That must have been reassuring.
Definitely. And her approach in her first class.
The source highlights she keeps it simple. Introduces herself honestly, remembering her own shyness and struggles as a beginner. She gently encourages students who are hesitant or making mistakes. Sharing a bit of her own story builds that immediate connection and makes her relatable.
And she finds satisfaction in it.
Yes, the source describes her satisfaction in helping others take those first tentative steps, seeing students start to open up, just as she once did.
But it's not perfect, right? There are still challenges.
Of course. The source is realistic. There were moments of unsureness, words escaping her, maybe judging her pace. But the key difference now is how she views these challenges. She sees each one not as proof she's failing, but as an opportunity to learn and grow as a teacher. Exploring the new city also adds to the excitement of this new chapter.
Her reflection that night sums it up.
It does, quoted in the source. New city, new role, but the heart of her journey, learning, sharing, never giving up, remain the same. She feels, I'm ready for tomorrow.
So this chapter really shows us new environments and roles inevitably bring new challenges, but they're also prime opportunities for continued learning and growth.
Exactly. And your past experiences as a learner are incredibly valuable assets in navigating these new roles, especially ones that involve sharing knowledge. Embrace challenges as chances to grow. How can you view challenges in your own learning as opportunities rather than just obstacles?
Chapter 14 focuses on overcoming doubts. Because even with the new job and initial success, the source shows doubts creep back in.
Yet, it happens after a particularly challenging lesson, where she stumbles over some words, maybe doesn't know an answer immediately. That old voice pipes up. What if I'm not good enough for this? The comfort and familiarity of the bakery suddenly seems very appealing.
It shows that self-doubt is just a recurring obstacle, isn't it? Even after making so much progress.
Absolutely. The source reiterates this. The key isn't to never feel doubt, but how you respond to it. Lena goes back to her roots, her notebook.
Finds that quote.
Yes, every expert was once a beginner. It's a crucial reminder that learning and teaching are ongoing processes. It's okay not to know everything. It's okay to make mistakes.
And she takes action based on this.
She does. The source describes her preparing lessons more carefully, yes, but also seeking advice from Mrs. Thompson, who vulnerably shares her own struggles when she first started teaching.
That must have helped normalize it.
Immensely. And crucially, Lena starts talking more openly with her students about challenges, about the learning process itself, building trust through that shared vulnerability.
And there's power in that vulnerability.
Huge power. She allowed herself to be human, celebrating small successes with her students and facing the doubts head on instead of hiding them. And then a student, Sarah, tells her something amazing.
What's that?
Sarah says, because of you, I'm not afraid to speak English anymore. This powerful feedback, noted in the source, reinforces that Lena's authenticity, her willingness to be real, mattered far more than having perfect grammar all the time.
Wow. So the chapter concludes with her realization.
Yes, quoting her again. Motivation isn't about never feeling afraid, but moving forward despite fear. It's about connection, courage, and kindness. Seeing the sunlight break through clouds metaphorically, she knows she will keep going.
The lesson is vital. Doubts are normal. They don't mean you're failing or unqualified. Seek support. Remember your own beginning in the messy process. Be vulnerable and move forward despite the fear. That's the true measure of courage and the real fuel for ongoing motivation.
Well said. So what is a doubt you can acknowledge and maybe face head on this week?
And finally, Chapter 15. The future unfolds. The source describes months passing. Lena's confidence continues to grow. She's become more than a teacher. She's a mentor, a friend, an inspiration to her students.
Mm-hmm. And her students are blossoming too, finding their own voices, chasing their own dreams, thanks partly to her encouragement.
And she reflects on her journey.
Yes. The source captures her sitting in the empty classroom one day, thinking all the way back to the beginning, the bakery, the doubts, the small victories, the big leaps. And she feels this deep sense of gratitude for the entire journey that shaped her, teaching her about perseverance, passion, and belief in herself.
Challenges will still come, but her perspective has changed.
Completely. She knows she'll face them with courage, hope, and the knowledge that she's not alone in the struggle.
And there's a profound realization looking at her students' work.
Yes. The source describes her looking at their notes, seeing their progress, their dreams, their determination, and knowing deeply that she was part of their story and they were part of hers. That beautiful interconnectedness.
Her future feels open now.
Yes. The source describes it as feeling bright, open, and full of possibilities. Her commitment is renewed to keep learning, keep teaching, keep inspiring.
So the ultimate power of motivation revealed in Lena's full story isn't just about changing your own life.
Exactly. It's about the ripple effect.
Yeah.
It's about how your journey, pursued with purpose and vulnerability, can actually change the lives of others in ways you might never fully know.
Wow. What an incredible, rich, deep dive into Lena's journey. From that very first quiet spark watching a movie, through hitting those walls of fatigue and deep doubt, finding that essential meaning in personal connections, learning to celebrate those small wins that built real confidence, embracing rest when needed.
Yeah, choosing courage over comfort again and again.
Discovering the sheer power of sharing her learning with others. Connection over perfection.
Finding sustainable ways to keep going during the inevitable slumps. Realizing the unseen impact of her quiet effort.
Learning that belief can overcome doubt, and finding that ultimate purpose in inspiring others. Her story just shows us that motivation is, well, it's complex, it's messy, and it's really beautiful.
It really is. It's such a powerful reminder that learning anything significant is a marathon, definitely not a sprint. It's full of ups and downs. But as Lena's story illustrates so beautifully, when you manage to anchor your efforts in a deep purpose, practice self-compassion during those tough times, build those consistent habits, celebrate every tiny step forward, and crucially, dare to connect and share, it becomes this profoundly rewarding journey.
A journey that impacts not just you, but the world around you too.
Exactly.
So building on Lena's realization in those later chapters, you know that your quiet effort has an unseen impact, and you never really know who might be watching or being inspired. Maybe consider this. Your own learning journey, whatever it is, with all its struggles, its doubts, and those quiet moments of just showing up and persisting. It isn't just shaping you. It might be planting seeds you can't see yet, or building a bridge for someone else you haven't even met, or maybe inspiring someone you know right now in ways you can't possibly imagine. How might your persistence today impact a future you can't yet see?
That's a great thought to end on. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive today. We really hope Lena's story gives you some renewed strength and maybe a new perspective for your own learning adventure.